The Middle East stands at the precipice of another major escalation. On Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, the Israeli Defense Forces launched a fresh wave of precision strikes against IRGC and Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, targeting infrastructure that the Islamic Republic had been desperately attempting to rebuild. The attacks came as tensions reached a boiling point following weeks of regional posturing, diplomatic maneuvering, and increasingly erratic behavior from Tehran's aging supreme leader. As the world watches this unfold, questions abound about what happens next. Are we heading toward a full-scale confrontation between Israel and the Iranian regime? Can diplomatic efforts in Istanbul actually prevent military action? And perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for the average citizen concerned about global stability, energy prices, and the safety of allies abroad? Today on TokRadar, we bring you comprehensive coverage of this breaking story, examining the military operations on the ground, the psychological warfare being waged on social media, the complex diplomatic chess match playing out across multiple capitals, and what experts are saying about the likely trajectory of events in the coming days. This is independent journalism at its finest, giving you the facts without the bias, the analysis without the agenda, and the context you need to understand what is truly at stake. The Israeli Defense Forces began their latest operation with a series of precision airstrikes targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in the southern Lebanese region. According to statements from the IDF, the operation was designed specifically to prevent the reorganization and rebuilding of militant capabilities following previous rounds of engagement. One particularly significant target was located in a civilian area, raising once again the controversial question of human shields and the ethical challenges faced by modern military forces operating in densely populated regions. The IDF confirmed that advanced warning was provided to civilians in affected areas, and additional measures were taken to minimize harm to non-combatants. This stands in stark contrast to the tactics employed by Hezbollah and their IRGC sponsors, who have long been documented for their deliberate strategy of embedding military assets within civilian infrastructure. The pattern is consistent and well documented. Schools, hospitals, and residential buildings converted into weapons storage facilities and command centers, turning the civilian population into involuntary human shields. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation following the strikes, delivering a message that left little room for ambiguity. He stated that more challenges lie ahead, that Israel remains alert and on high alert, and that the nation is prepared for any development. The Prime Minister emphasized continuous monitoring of the situation and readiness for any scenario. Perhaps most significantly, he issued a warning to any entity contemplating attacks on Israel. Whoever attacks will face unbearable consequences. The military operation came against the backdrop of emergency security meetings in Israel. Last night, an emergency security cabinet meeting was convened, and tonight, another urgent and reportedly secret meeting took place between Netanyahu and the leader of the opposition, Yair Lapid. The participation of the opposition leader in such sensitive briefings underscores the gravity of the situation and the recognition that national unity becomes paramount during times of heightened threat. This is not a moment for partisan politics. Whether liberal or conservative, Israeli citizens understand that standing together behind their nation's defense is essential when existential threats materialize. While the Israeli military was conducting its operations, events in Tehran were taking a dramatically different but equally significant turn. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, the 85-year-old ruler of the Islamic Republic, apparently experienced what observers are describing as a public meltdown on social media platforms. The tone and content of his communications throughout the day suggested a leader under enormous pressure, either genuinely believing the conspiracy theories he was propagating or deliberately attempting to rally his base through inflammatory rhetoric. Among the more remarkable claims from Khamenei was the assertion that the recent events were orchestrated by Zionists and the United States, with the CIA and Mossad having deployed all of their resources into the field. The specific phrasing, deploying everything from Africa to Asia, from South America to the Middle East, painted a picture of a regime that views itself as under siege from a global conspiracy of unprecedented scale. The question that must be asked is whether the supreme leader genuinely believes this narrative or whether it serves a domestic political purpose in maintaining control over a population that grows increasingly restless. The psychological dimension of this conflict cannot be overstated. When a totalitarian regime's leader resorts to conspiracy theories and hyperbolic rhetoric, it often signals either genuine fear or calculated desperation. The Islamic Republic faces multiple pressures: economic sanctions that have devastated the living standards of ordinary Iranians, popular unrest that threatens to erupt into broader rebellion, and now the very real prospect of military action that could end the regime's ability to project power beyond its borders. The contrast between the measured, professional statements from Israeli leadership and the erratic social media posts from Tehran tells us something profound about the state of each regime. Israel operates with transparency, clear chains of command, and strategic communication. The Islamic Republic operates through opacity, mixed signals, and increasingly desperate propaganda. This asymmetry of information and psychology may prove to be as significant as any military asset in determining the conflict's ultimate trajectory. While the bombs were falling in Lebanon and the supreme leader was posting his conspiracy theories, another crucial battle was being fought in the realm of diplomacy. Steve Witkoff, the lead American negotiator, was scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu on Tuesday, February 3rd, in what promises to be a pivotal conversation about the parameters of any potential deal with the Islamic Republic. The stakes could not be higher. The future of the Middle East, the safety of American personnel in the region, and the credibility of American diplomacy all hang in the balance. The potential for direct talks between the United States and Iran took a significant step forward, with reports that discussions might occur in Istanbul on Friday. Abbas Araghchi, the Iranian foreign minister, initially confirmed that Friday meetings were under consideration. However, the response from Washington was notably non-committal, with officials stating that nothing had been confirmed. This carefully orchestrated uncertainty is a hallmark of high-stakes diplomacy, where both sides attempt to maintain maximum flexibility while appearing open to dialogue. The Islamic Republic then raised what can only be described as an extraordinary demand. For any talks to proceed, all American military assets must be withdrawn from Iran and the broader Middle East region. This request, which borders on delusional in its scope, demonstrates either a fundamental misunderstanding of American strategic interests or a deliberate attempt to scuttle negotiations while appearing to engage in good faith. The United States has not spent decades building its presence in the region, investing blood and treasure to secure vital interests, simply to abandon everything because Tehran demands it. The most likely outcome is a symbolic gesture from the American side, perhaps a slight repositioning of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group or other assets, not a comprehensive withdrawal. President Trump, who has made clear his skepticism of the Islamic Republic and his willingness to use military force when necessary, is unlikely to be intimidated by such demands. The question becomes whether the Islamic Republic can accept a face-saving compromise that allows negotiations to proceed without appearing to capitulate to American pressure. Central to any negotiations is the question of Iran's nuclear program and the extensive stockpiles of enriched uranium that have accumulated over years of diplomatic stalemate and limited enforcement. According to sources within the Islamic Republic, there are indications that Tehran may be willing to make a significant concession on this front, potentially agreeing to transfer enriched uranium to Russia or Turkey. Such a move would reduce the immediate proliferation threat while preserving the regime's nuclear infrastructure and expertise. However, the official position from the regime's leadership remains contradictory and confusing. While government officials and the foreign minister suggest openness to uranium transfer, the official state apparatus led by Ali Khamenei and Mohammad Javad Zarifjani has contradicted these statements. This coordinated incoherence is either an attempt to send mixed signals to the Americans, a tactic that has historically failed when employed by Tehran, or evidence of genuine internal divisions within the regime. The issue of ballistic missiles represents an even more intractable problem. Israel has made clear that any comprehensive deal must address the threat posed by Iran's delivery systems for weapons of mass destruction. The Islamic Republic's ballistic missile program has been developed specifically to threaten Israel and regional American assets, and surrendering this capability would eliminate a primary lever of regional influence. The gap between American and Israeli demands on this issue and the Islamic Republic's red lines appears virtually unbridgeable. Even if a limited nuclear agreement could be reached, experts warn that it would change very little in terms of the fundamental threat posed by the Islamic Republic. A deal that merely pauses enrichment without dismantling the program or eliminating the delivery systems would leave in place the capacity for rapid breakout should the regime choose to pursue weapons. This is not a peace agreement designed to transform the relationship or ensure regional stability. At best, it would be a temporary freeze that allows both sides to claim victory while the underlying tensions remain unresolved. The Middle East conflict extends far beyond the players immediately involved, drawing in global powers with competing interests and significant military capabilities. A joint military exercise between the United States and Israel demonstrated the continued strength of the alliance and the coordination between the two nations' armed forces. The USS Delbert D. Black, an American destroyer, conducted drills with the Israeli naval vessel INS Eilat as part of ongoing cooperation between the Israeli Navy and the U.S. Fifth Fleet operating in the Red Sea. These exercises serve multiple purposes beyond simple training. They send a clear message to Tehran about the combined capability arrayed against any aggressive action. They demonstrate to regional allies that America stands ready to defend its interests and those of its partners. And they provide practical experience in coordination that would prove invaluable should actual combat operations become necessary. The message is unambiguous. Any attack on Israel or American assets in the region will face a coordinated response from two of the world's most capable military forces. Meanwhile, the Chinese Communist Party has deployed a spy ship to monitor American military movements near the USS Abraham Lincoln, operating outside the Gulf of Oman. Beijing claims the vessel is merely monitoring activity in waters not far from Chinese territory, but the timing and location suggest a more active intelligence-gathering mission supporting the Islamic Republic. This development highlights the global dimensions of the conflict and the way regional tensions can draw in major powers with their own strategic calculations. The IRGC's naval and drone assets have been notably active, with aircraft conducting overflights of American military vessels engaged in operations. The USS Abraham Lincoln and Central Command have issued warnings that the United States will not tolerate unsafe IRGC actions, including low-altitude overflights of American military assets when intentions are unclear. Officially, the intentions of Iranian drones like the SEP-25001 may be unclear, but unofficially, there is little doubt that these aircraft are engaged in surveillance and targeting activities aimed at gathering intelligence on American dispositions. Jordan has become an unexpected player in the unfolding drama, with the Islamic Republic apparently seeking guarantees that Jordanian airspace will not be used for attacks on Iran. Jordan's response was straightforward. They would not allow their airspace to be used for operations against Iran. However, this guarantee may prove worthless in practice, as any Iranian attack on Israel would still need to transit Jordanian airspace, making Jordan's commitment to shoot down Iranian drones effectively a commitment to defend Israel. The Islamic Republic's attempt to secure a diplomatic shield has instead highlighted their strategic isolation. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps has not remained silent during this period of heightened tension. Senior commanders have issued warnings to the United States that failure to act wisely with Iran will result in regrets. The specific nature of these threats, whether limited to the region or extending to American soil, remains deliberately ambiguous, designed to intimidate while maintaining plausible deniability. The tone and content of these statements reveal much about the psychology of a regime that simultaneously begs for negotiations and threatens violence. Abdul Rahim Amuzad, chief of staff to the Islamic military, stated that the regime is now fully prepared for war and that no American will be safe. This combination of belligerence and apparent delusion would be humorous if the consequences were not so serious. The gap between the Islamic Republic's rhetoric and its actual capabilities has never been wider, and the continued threats against the United States, while simultaneously begging for negotiations, represent a diplomatic strategy that has consistently failed to produce results. The pattern of behavior is revealing. While government officials and diplomats engage in back-channel negotiations and express willingness to make concessions, the military and Revolutionary Guard leadership continue to issue threats and warnings. This is not coordination. It is either deliberate confusion tactics or evidence of a regime that has lost control of its own messaging. Either way, it undermines confidence in any agreement the Islamic Republic might sign, as there is no assurance that the military will respect terms negotiated by diplomats. The irony is that this aggressive posturing has achieved precisely the opposite of its intended effect. American resolve has hardened, Israeli preparedness has increased, and the prospects for a diplomatic resolution that preserves the regime have diminished. If the goal was to intimidate the United States into concessions, the strategy has spectacularly failed. If the goal was to rally domestic support, the results remain uncertain. What is clear is that the Islamic Republic finds itself in an increasingly precarious position with fewer options and less leverage than at any point in recent memory. Predicting the trajectory of events in the Middle East is a fool's errand, but certain factors will shape the coming days and weeks. The next 48 to 72 hours will be crucial in determining whether the current tensions subside into a new equilibrium or escalate into direct military confrontation. Experts suggest that by Sunday, we should have much clearer indicators of which direction events are trending. If negotiations appear to be making genuine progress by early next week, the likelihood of immediate military action diminishes. Conversely, if the diplomatic track collapses and the Islamic Republic continues its provocations, the probability of Israeli or American military operations increases significantly. President Trump faces a strategic calculation: diplomatic engagement that could produce a limited deal but risks appearing weak, or military action that could eliminate immediate threats but risks broader regional war. The domestic political dimension cannot be ignored. President Trump's approach to Iran has been characterized by maximum pressure and public skepticism of diplomatic solutions, yet the possibility of a dramatic foreign policy success before midterm elections cannot be ruled out. The Republican Party faces internal divisions, and a successful resolution of the Iran situation, either diplomatic or military, could provide significant political benefits. The calculations being made in Washington, Tel Aviv, and Tehran are intertwined in ways that make prediction extraordinarily difficult. What seems clear is that the current trajectory is unsustainable. The Islamic Republic cannot indefinitely maintain its current posture of simultaneous threat-making and negotiation begging. Israel cannot indefinitely accept the presence of hostile forces on its northern border, and the United States cannot indefinitely maintain its enhanced military presence in the region without a clear resolution. The coming weeks will likely bring clarity, whether through diplomatic breakthrough, military action, or an uneasy continuation of the status quo. The events of February 3, 2026 represent another dangerous chapter in the ongoing saga of Middle Eastern instability. Israeli strikes against IRGC and Hezbollah positions, the supreme leader's apparent social media meltdown, the complex diplomatic dance between Washington and Tehran, and the global power dynamics involving China and regional allies all combine to create a situation of extraordinary complexity and danger. What we have witnessed is not simply a military conflict or a diplomatic dispute. We are observing the final act of a regime that has exhausted its options and confronted the limits of its revolutionary ideology. The Islamic Republic's ability to intimidate its enemies, deceive its people, and sustain its revolutionary project has been exposed as the hollow construct it always was. Whether the regime survives this crisis in its current form remains to be seen, but the direction of travel seems increasingly clear. For viewers seeking independent, factual coverage of these events, TokRadar remains committed to bringing you the analysis and context that mainstream media often fails to provide. We do not promote agendas. We do not parrot official narratives. We do not fear calling out tyranny regardless of where it exists. We believe that informed citizens make better decisions, that truth matters, and that the defense of freedom and democracy requires constant vigilance. What do you think about the situation in the Middle East? Should the international community take a stronger stand against the Islamic Republic's provocations? Can diplomatic solutions work with a regime that simultaneously threatens and begs? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. If you found this coverage valuable, make sure to subscribe to TokRadar for more independent journalism and in-depth analysis of global events. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest content. And check out our other platforms where we continue to bring you stories that matter, stories that challenge the mainstream narrative, and stories that defend the values of freedom and democracy. The world is watching, and with TokRadar, you'll always know what's really happening.